Hey guys, it's Kai, and welcome to part 2 of our weekly critique. The first photo is by Federico. I really like this overall setting. The way that the balloon is centered in the middle and you have the city kind of down below is a really good timed capture. The color choice is also really great. The orange and the blue really complement each other, as well as create this contrast. So the first thing I noticed is that there might be the vignette or this darkening of this corner is a little conflicting with the light in the overall scene. From this picture, you can see that the light's kind of shining from this direction. So what I would do if I was editing this is I would actually put this kind of vignette over here, and then I would actually brighten this part so that light is actually coming down like that. Because this would flow with the overall setting of the photo. So you can see that the shadows are here. So it's better to actually have this part brighter and kind of shining onto the lit up part here. The first thing I did was I just quickly added a bit of a bright color to kind of remove the vignette here. Then I brought the vignette kind of back in the other corners, which kind of directs more focus to this part. And now we kind of have a overall feeling that the light is kind of coming from the top left corner and coming down. I added a bit more vignette to the bottom. Then I realized that because I was doing a really quick edit, this kind of faded away the balloon and we're losing kind of the details in the overall balloon. I just used the original image and I kind of brought the details back. Afterwards, I thought, let's make this part a bit more bright so that the light is more visible to the audience. So just increase the brightness here a little bit with curves. Now I feel like this overall photo lost the saturation and contrast of the original image. So I used curves to bring back both contrast and some color to the overall photo. So now we have our blue and our orange back. And finally, I just did a saturation increase for the orange just to make the balloon and the city kind of pop, as well as the overall areas where the sun kind of hit for the landscape. And just a quick before and after. Alright, so for the second photo, this one is by Antonio. The first thing I fell in love with was the leading lines. This whole picture just screams visuals, and that sunset or sunrise is really epic. Like the first photo, the blue and the orange also mix really well. Really creates this play on color. Not much I would change or need fixing, but I would edit this a bit more moody in my personal preference. So the first thing I did was I thought because there's light kind of leaking through, I wanted to kind of amplify that effect. Just did some subtle increases of light through the kind of arches as well as the side. And I think the light is kind of coming from this side as well. So I added a bit of so I increased the brightness here a little bit. And for me, I really like to decrease darkness of the other side. Whenever I increase brightness of one side, I would do the opposite to the other. Then I thought the orange is very beautiful in this photo. So let's further bring out the orange in this picture. I used selective coloring to kind of make the yellows a bit more orange as well as increase the overall saturation. Then I felt like the overall image was still a bit warm. I brought it into Camera Raw, or the Lightroom equivalent, and I gave it a nice vignette and fade on the edges, as well as did a S-curve, I think. Afterwards, I gave it some cold blues to the shadows. At this point, I realized that the vignette on the top right corner was a bit strong, so I just did curves to kind of remove it. And finally, I actually noticed the image was a bit off from the center, so I just did a quick crop as well as adjustment to the overall picture to center it directly. And just to show you the before and after. Alright, so our last picture is by Janek. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I really like the mood in this picture, as well as the overall setting. Not too sure what this is, but it feels like it's an architecture kind of castle or something in the forest. Super unique, and it's actually my first time seeing this place. One thing I noticed right away was that there's some composition conflicts in here. I feel like the foreground is taking up too much space for the overall picture. And I really think this foreground is actually taking away from this epic scene here. The first thing I would actually do is just remove the foreground completely. Now we can actually just focus directly at the architecture or the building. And the contrast here is pretty much on the edges as well, so the viewer might look at here and here, and I don't really want that, so I'm actually going to decrease contrast and lower the brightness here. Then I realized that the sky was a bit distracting as well, so I just lowered the overall brightness of the sky and kind of gave the edges a bit more of a vignette. Then I just added a tiny bit of light here to kind of just to show that this part's the main focus and kind of separate this part from its surroundings. Afterwards, I felt the trees to be a bit too desaturated and it was a bit cold, so I brought a bit more of a warm color and a bit more saturation back to the greens. Then I added another layer to color in the greens, and just a quick before and after. And that's it for this week's critique. If you want to send in your pictures for critique, you can send me an email. I'll provide the link in my descriptions. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave a comment. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Have a great day, friends.